What if I told you the biggest advantage of people who start with nothing is actually nothing? Sounds strange, right? Because we're usually taught that starting from zero is a disadvantage. That if you don't have money, connections, or support, you're already behind in life. But psychology tells a very different story, and by the end of this, you might completely rethink what starting from nothing really means. Let me tell you about someone I want you to imagine. His name is Daniel. Daniel didn't grow up with privilege. No financial safety net. No connections. No clear path laid out for him. Just uncertainty and a constant feeling that life required more from him just to stay afloat. There were nights when silence at home meant bills weren't paid. Days when motivation didn't matter because survival came first. And for a long time, Daniel believed something that many people in his situation believe without even realizing it, that this is just how life is for him. But something changed. Not outside of him, but inside of him. And that internal shift is what separates people who stay stuck from people who rise from nothing. Psychologists from Princeton University have studied something called the scarcity mindset. When people lack resources, the brain shifts into survival mode. It narrows focus, increases stress, and reduces long-term thinking. In simple terms, when you're struggling, your mind becomes so focused on immediate problems that it struggles to think about the future. But Daniel did something different. Instead of only reacting to his situation, he started observing it. He began noticing patterns. Why some people stayed stuck in the same cycle, while others seemed to slowly move forward. He paid attention to habits, decisions, and consequences. And without realizing it, he was building one of the most powerful traits a person can develop: awareness. Because while most people were overwhelmed, Daniel was learning. People who rise from nothing often develop 3 traits early in life. They question everything instead of accepting their situation blindly. They build emotional resilience because life forces them to. And they learn patience, not because it's easy, but because rushing isn't an option. At some point, Daniel made a small but powerful shift. He stopped saying, "I can't afford this life," and started saying, "I'm building a different one." That might sound simple, but research from Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck on growth mindset shows something important. The way we define ourselves influences the way we behave. If you see yourself as stuck, your brain looks for proof of limitation. But if you see yourself as someone who is building, your brain starts looking for possibilities instead. Daniel didn't change his life first. He changed his identity first. And that's something most people overlook. Let's be honest. Almost everyone has felt behind at some point. Scrolling through social media, seeing others succeed faster, wondering if they somehow missed their chance. Daniel felt that too. The difference is he didn't let those feelings define him. He treated them as temporary emotions, not permanent truths. Here's something most people don't realize. Pain doesn't just break people. It also builds people, if it's used correctly. Behavioral psychology research shows that adversity can actually increase persistence when a person believes their actions still matter. Daniel started using frustration differently. Every setback became feedback. Every failure became information. Every disappointment became direction. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" he started asking, "What can I learn from this?" And that one shift changed everything. But if this works so well, why doesn't everyone do it? Because the brain doesn't naturally chase growth. It chases familiarity. Studies in cognitive bias show that humans often prefer predictable discomfort over uncertain improvement. In other words, people stay in situations they don't like simply because they understand them. Daniel made a different choice. He chose uncertainty on purpose. And that's where real change begins. If you want to think like someone who rises from nothing, start by changing your questions. Stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" Stop comparing your timeline to others and start comparing your habits to who you were yesterday. And stop waiting for motivation to appear. Start building discipline through repetition. Because what you repeat becomes who you are. One of the strongest predictors of long-term success is something psychologists call delayed gratification. The famous Stanford marshmallow experiment showed that people who can wait for bigger rewards tend to have better outcomes in education, career, and life overall. Daniel stopped chasing quick wins. He focused on building skills that would matter later. While others looked for shortcuts, he focused on capability. And capability compounds over time. Years passed. There was no sudden moment where everything changed overnight. No dramatic breakthrough. But something quieter happened. The life Daniel once thought was impossible slowly became normal. Not because life got easier, but because he changed. Now ask yourself something honestly. Are you actually stuck, or are you just in the middle of something that hasn't shown results yet? Because most people don't fail because they can't succeed. They fail because they quit too early. They mistake delay for defeat. Success is not one big moment. It's identity repeated over time. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you reinforce a new version of yourself. Every time you learn instead of escape, you expand your future. Every time you continue when it feels uncomfortable, you separate yourself from who you used to be. Daniel didn't transform overnight. He simply stopped behaving like the version of himself that stayed stuck. And over time, that changed everything. So the next time you feel like you're starting from nothing, remember this. Nothing is not a disadvantage. It's just a starting point without limits already written on it. What you build inside it determines everything. And if this made you think differently, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Because here, we don't just talk about success. We break down the psychology behind it so you can actually use it in real life. And most people never notice this. But now you do. Your story isn't over. It's just getting shaped right now.